Welcome to the Weekend Write-In, where writers read flash fiction.
The voiceless dictate pushes you forward towards the covered blade.
Bony fingers clamped around the nape of my neck.
Then suddenly, my worst fears were realized.
I'm Søvn Drake.
And I'm John Edwill.
Well, here we are on Halloween in our over-engineered Pacific Northwest camping chairs around a cozy fire.
You really like to nerd out in your camping gear, don't you? I can't believe you wrote me into this trip, though. Camping really doesn't agree with me.
Oh, but with modern equipment, it's so much more comfortable and lightweight.
Yeah, that's as maybe. But we'll see if I can get to sleep on the ground. But I do have to admit, there's nothing like a good fire to keep you warm.
And to keep the boogeyman away.
The boogeyman? Where?
That's just an old campfire tale. There's no such thing as the boogeyman.
That's what you think. I could tell you a few stories about things that I've seen.
Like what?
Well, when I was younger, there was this time when... What was that?
What? I can't hear any. Oh,
What?
there's something moving in the trees, just beyond the firelight.
I can see them. It's horrible.
What is it? Vampires? Werewolves? Zombies?
No, worse. It's writers.
Antigonish by Jason Greenfield. Nova Scotia, the late 1970s. I've often thought about the poem. Some days in the quiet of the large house and its estate grounds, I dwell upon it often. When I first retired and my daughter arranged for my care at the house, I found I didn't care for it. Luxuriously appointed it may be, but a huge old mansion like this. It reminded me of my time as deputy director of the institution. I cannot even now bear to say the name. Suffice to say, it was another huge house, turned to the care of the disturbed. It was back home in America, in the state of Missouri. The sights and sounds I saw there, they have haunted me for decades. But I find the quiet of this place is scarcely better. Here I am too alone with my thoughts, and I tend to muse. I muse too much. The house is located in the town of Antigonish. On my first day, a kindly porter who took my bags up to my well-appointed rooms told me of the poem, the famous poem that was named for the town. That was 6 years ago, and it's hardly left my mind ever since. Every time I think of it, I think of him. Has he come for me as he had others? The doctor who was writing a book on him, found brutally murdered years after leaving the institution. No sign of his notes on the patient. Others who were on staff, all dead under mysterious circumstances. The rumors of the clown killer. Those who knew the patient had their suspicions, but it was just a legend. So they said. I had my doubts. One night, I had overindulged in whiskey. It was a cold winter, mind you, and apart from the chill, it helped my nerves. The house has only 24 residents, bar staff, all wealthy older gentlemen like myself. We or our families pay a lot for the care we receive, and it is of the finest. Unlike the institution, there are no guards, no locked rooms, no forbidden areas. We are free to go where we please, day and night. And so, finding my drinks cabinet bereft of my favoured brand, I set off at around 2 a.m. to search out a bottle from the study below. And I was making my way by lamplight down the grand, baroque wooden staircase, when I fancied I saw a movement in the shadows. Unbidden, the poem sprang to mind. Yesterday, in fact now, but thereafter the proverbial yesterday, upon the stair, I met a man who wasn't there. The next day I thought of it again, and every time I ventured up or down the stairs, day or night, he wasn't there again today. Oh, how I wish he'd go away. I could hear noises of the night, and creaks and groans of the woods, and wind in the day. Was I imagining? Giggles. When I came home last night at 3, the man was waiting there for me. My nerves were shot. I was seeing clowns everywhere. But when I looked around the hall, I couldn't see him there at all. Go away, and please don't slam the door. Eventually, I took action, a technique my dear, dead friend, the doctor, had used. My memory, even in my 77th year, was still keen, and so I fashioned the clown mask, his visage. I must confront this evil of the imagination, and then I could banish it, return my mind to quiet. But with quiet came obsession. I fancied I saw him even in my mirror, the giggling clown coming for me, knife in hand. Last night upon the stair, a little man who wasn't there. He wasn't there again today. Oh, how I wish he'd go away, go away, go away, go away! Then suddenly, my worst fears were realized. The young nurse, her name was Maggie, I think, a charming, caring young woman. She was calling out, asking me what was wrong. He was standing behind her, knife raised. I tried to call out a warning, but she shone her torch in my face and screamed. Too late, his knife stabbed into her back again and again and again as he giggled like a maniac. He would kill me next. A miracle. Giggles had spared me. I must have passed out. Was it a dream? No. Maggie lay dead, blood pooling from her stabbed stomach and breast, staining the white linen of her uniform pinks and reds. I couldn't see. My hand felt tight. Flexing my fingers, the knife dropped from my grasp, and with my other hand I tore his face from mine. I started to giggle uncontrollably.
Enough is as good as a feast, by John Nedwell. The winter was going to be a hard one. Most of the Wilkerson family's crops had suffered during the summer floods, and the rot that set in at the time of the autumn harvest had put paid to much of the rest. Still, the Wilkersons had always prided themselves on their hospitality, and they were not going to turn away any travellers. So, when a stranger arrived in late October, the Wilkersons extended him their best welcome. "Where are you from?" Pa Wilkerson asked as he leaned on his pitchfork. The stranger squinted in the autumn sunlight. "Up north," he said. "Bad, as they say?" The stranger shrugged. "Depends what you heard. Plenty of food, but only because the plague's taken most of the hungry mouths." He caught sight of Pa's worried expression and laughed reassuringly. "Not to worry. I'm clean. Kept away from towns and people when I could. Look, if you want, I'll be on my way." Pa straightened up. "Wouldn't hear of it. Sides, the next steading is too far away. You wouldn't get there 'fore dark. May as well come on in." When Ma Wilkerson saw Pa bringing the stranger into the house, she shot her husband a vicious glance. But that didn't stop her welcoming the visitor. "How do? Sorry we don't have much to offer. Time's been hard. But what's ours is yours." The stranger put his knapsack on the well-scrubbed boards of the kitchen table. "Don't have much either, but I'm willing to share." "Nonsense," Ma said. "You'll eat from our pot tonight. There's other ways you can pay." At dinner, the family, Ma, Pa, and their children, gathered around the table to eat, drink, and talk. The conversation was lively, with tales being swapped and news being told. There were many questions asked by the children, and the replies were listened to carefully by all. Eventually, as the fire in the grate burned low, the youngsters were sent to bed. Pa produced an old earthenware bottle that gurgled with promise. "Made this myself," he said proudly as he uncorked the vessel. "Real good, but a bit rough to the untutored palate." Pa winked at Ma, then filled a leather cup to the brim. "Most kind." The stranger took a sip from the cup and coughed. "Strong, but warming." Pa raised a similar cup to his lips. "All the better if you do it in one go." Together, Pa and the stranger drank. After a few cups, the stranger was slumped unconscious in his chair. Pa put down his drink and poked the stranger, who didn't respond. He turned to Ma. "What do you think?" Ma appraised the stranger with a practiced eye. "He'll do," she said after a moment's thought. "Looks like there's plenty on him."
What is this petulance? Have I not paid you back in full for your offerings? I do not live off of your measly scraps. It's not the rabbit you bring me that feeds me, it's the act. Do you not understand this? The worship. Were you not coveted by a lover once? Did you not yourself feel the reverence, the love and affection flow through your very being, exceeding that earthly sustenance, just like the loss of it will exceed the most deadly poison? Yes, you surely must have felt this, and yet you are nothing like me. You're human, nothing more. A rabbit. You bend down, you bow. The voiceless dictate pushes you forward towards the covered blade. The sword you were given once. Your own sword. The white linen, pristine and unblemished. Your pose straight. A muscle in your lower back is trembling. It's a welcome distraction from the prospect of pain. Your saisa is near perfect. A light bow lets you reach the cool blade. Solemnly, you lay your right hand on the tsuka. In one smooth move, you draw the sword out from under the cloth. The mild breeze blows across your face as you blink a drop from your eye. This was always your favorite blade. The katana was beautiful and light, but this was so dear to you in some profound way. You said once that the hamon reminded you of the mountains near the sea. It extends into the kisaki, that most wonderfully polished tip. The poem you drew lies on a small stool in front of you. You put a lot of effort into it, but I don't think anyone will read it. Oh, that is a tear in your eye, isn't it? Behind you to the right, Kohaku is breathing lightly. He had been Kaishakunin before. You know that Kohaku possesses a skill, that he may perform the Dakikubi even if you should falter in your saisa. But you wouldn't, would you? Falter. I will be there to guide your hand. Yes, I will help you. Many had guessed that your motives to pick your wakizashi and not a tanto as tradition prescribes. It's not unheard of, but certainly not the usual choice either. But you love that blade. I can see it in your eyes when you wield it. You so loved the habubiraki and really believed it to shield you from attack. In reality, it was I who did it. Really? Open to 8 sides? There is a 9th, you know, but I think you're beginning to realize that now. Behind you, you can sense Kohaku make a quiet step back, sliding his right foot. You can't see him, but you know that his sword will be drawn within seconds now. Once he does, it will be held upwards in his right hand, his left kept at his side. There it stays until the final movement. The left hand has only one purpose here, to stop at the dakikubi, precisely there. You draw your left arm out of the kimono sleeve and part the front. Such a pity. The white fabric is like camellia flowers growing in the courtyard near the wall, faultless. Your thoughts wander. The oil on your sword smells of the camellia seeds it was pressed from. A circle? Your white kimono will soon be the color of other camellias. Yes, a circle. Extending your arm from within your kimono, you pick up the linen cloth from the stool and fold it gently around the blade near the habaki. You pray. How dare you? You so happily accepted my gifts, and now you pray to someone else? You insolent prick. As you thrust the sword into your abdomen, I nudge your hand slightly. Instead of penetrating the skin and sever the liver, the kisaki hits the underside of the rib and tears through your diaphragm. And I can tell you know I did it. You will not scream, but as the bottom of your left lung is punctured, you very nearly do. Then you drag. I have no other word for it. You drag the blade across your stomach. You no longer have the elegance in you. It must have fizzled out of your lung. That tiny notch spilled it, didn't it? You are so easy to control. I do it again. I notch. This time the kisaki grazes the spine. There is a large artery there. You didn't know that. You do now. As it is severed, the heart immediately loses its counter-pressure. Blood pumps into your abdomen and spews out through the lash you have not even finished cutting. Blood literally gushes out of the wound, and your right hand slips in the tsuka. Only your left still finds traction through the blood-soaked linen wrapped around the blade. Your vision is blurry, almost sightless, but you can still make out the woman sitting in front of you. She smiles. The woman who brought you here. She shouldn't smile. Protocol prohibits that. But I gave her this puny charade. Shocked by your blunder, Kohaku has become hesitant. Unlike you, however, he possesses actual skill. He straightens his katana and, regaining his posture, cuts down at your exposed neck. The blade severs the spine, and he stops exactly in time to leave the windpipe intact. Why am I telling you this? You are dead.
I originally wrote this story for the Halloween podcast. Then the mediocre Brit came up with a prompt time, and it fit the story perfectly, so I used it. I am Tom Walborn, and this is Out of Time. He dreamed of killing his wife. He wanted to do it slowly so she would know what was happening to her, payback for the years of slights and imagined indignities she had visited on him. In his waking hours, he planned how to do it, how to avoid being caught. But would that be so bad, to be caught? It would prove that he was a man to be reckoned with, not just a doormat to wipe your feet on. Maybe he should just do it and confess. I did it. That's what you get when you mess with me. It is all he thought of. He obsessed over it for a year. In fact, it was all he could do, lay around and make plans that would never be fulfilled. Since the accident last year, he was dependent on her for everything. He couldn't even take a crap without needing her to clean him up. Her incessant chatter drove him crazy. Kathy did this. The mailman brought that. Did he look like he cared what the mailman delivered? And her cheerfulness, he hated her for it. He tried to kill her with his glare, but she wouldn't look him in the eye. She would just bustle in, adjust the sheets, or tweak the machine, and bustle out. She never looked directly at him. He liked to think she felt guilty, that it was somehow her fault that he got drunk and fell down those stairs. He woke to a change in the room. His daughters and the grandkids are here. This is the first time he has seen them in a couple of years. Why are they here? He looks at his wife, and her eyes are red-rimmed. The kids hover over him for a while and say meaningless things. Then they sit back and talk among themselves. Hey, I'm right here. Talk to me, he tried to say. I can't see you where you're now sitting. In fact, he can only see the tops of their heads. Eventually, he dozes off. A pressure on his chest wakes him. It is darker in the room and quiet. He opens his eyes to see his wife leaning over him. Her face is close, and finally, she is looking directly into his eyes. The kids came because I told them your time was near. They should come and say goodbye. You are going to die tonight, but just not the way they think, you miserable old bastard. You should have died last year when I pushed you down those stairs. It's time to finish the job. His vision was starting to narrow as black rings, tinged with red, now framed his view of his wife's face. Her eyes continued to stare into his. In case you're wondering, I am leaning on your breathing tubes just enough to slow things down. I want you to look at me as you go. I want it to be slow. He couldn't push her off. He couldn't look away. He saw no mercy in her eyes, no love, no regret, only hatred. Then he stopped seeing. He didn't know how long he was out. Faint light filtered through the closed blinds. There was a rustle of fabric, and his wife spoke. Trick or treat. Isn't that what you used to say to us after you beat on us? Well, back at ya. Guess tonight just wasn't your time. Or maybe death is too good for you. What's another year? Let's do this again next Halloween, shall we? All he could do was glare as she left the room.
The Village of the Dead by Berengaria de Rossi. We laughed at the viejos when they whispered about the vanished. Of course, people disappeared from our village. Neighbors, children, even the priest one year. They left for the city, we said. No mystery. No evil spirits. But the old ones shook their heads, clacked their rosaries, and begged us not to go out once darkness fell on the Day of the Dead. We didn't listen, of course not. We were young and out for fun. We wrapped tiny pink sugar skulls and sweetbread in the shape of corpses into old dishcloths, and snuck to where the road bends into the black mouth of the jungle to celebrate the day in our own fashion. Legends meant nothing to us. They mean something to me now. I was within sight of my friends when a strange fog rolled out from the darkness, and bony fingers clamped around the nape of my neck. "Not to the light, but to the dark you're going," said a voice like the screeching of bats. My vision blurred, the pinpricks of lamplight from the party swimming as if underwater. I screamed and kicked at the thing holding me, but was jerked away from the road. The thick foliage and trunks of the jungle trees, nothing more than patches of denser matter raking through my body like a comb through water. And then we were out the other side and into the clearing. A tall pyramid glistened in the light of a full moon. "A new one!" howled a skeleton wearing a feathered Aztec headdress and a long robe. It danced up next to me, slashing a golden knife in front of my face. The hand on my neck pushed me forward, and I stumbled on through a horde of shuddering, grinning skeletons in golden jewelry. Ghosts drifted across the clearing like clouds. The eyes of jaguars glowed green in the shadows. At the base of the pyramid stood the tallest of the skeletons, swathed in a midnight blue robe. "Welcome to the village of the dead." My heart stopped. I knew her. "You're Santa Muerte, Our Lady of Holy Death." The giant skeleton seemed to smile. "Come and join the celebration with your ancestors. Everyone here is of the same blood." She gestured up to the darkly stained altar at the top of the pyramid. That was years ago. Many new partiers have arrived since, stumbling out of the jungle, terrified and confused. We have only feasted on sugar skulls and corpse bread in all this time, and we have thinned to mere skin and bone. And when I am only bones, Santa Muerte will send me back to choose a new villager for her eternal Night of the Dead celebration. I'm looking forward to it. The viejos were right. Don't go out after dark on this night, or I just might choose you.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of the Weekend Write-In Podcast. For more episodes and links to more work by these authors, go to our website at www.weekendwritein.wordpress.com. The Weekend Write-In Podcast is co-hosted, produced, and edited by John Nedwell and Søvn Drake. In this episode, royalty-free music is from festlionstudios.com, sound effects from BBC Sound Effects Archive and freesound.org.
Have they gone?
Yes, they have. Thank goodness they only wanted to tell some stories and eat a few s'mores. It could have been much worse.
I don't know. Some of those stories were rather frightening.
Tell me about it.
The boogeyman!
No, wait. Come back. Don't leave me alone. I'm tired and scared. Oh, this is an interesting-looking camping mattress. It's almost as if there's separate air cells that gently mold to the contour of your body. Comfy.